All right, good morning. Welcome to stream number 5, Thursday, the 11th of December. So last night, the Fed cut rates as expected. The market liked it temporarily, and then overnight, the Asian market sold off and the European and US markets fell with it. So this is where we are on the daily chart. We're clearly in an uptrend since the major low on the 20th of November. We've had a prior bar low overnight on the daily chart, which has been bought 24,000, currently acting as quite key support. And then here you'll see what actually happened overnight. So yesterday, while we were trading, the market fell to test the 24,000 level, and then it was basically sideways until late afternoon. And then once the Fed announced the rate cut, the market moved higher. And then overnight, we've had quite a significant sell-off, back down again to test 24,000. And then in the pre-market this morning, we're moving higher. So we're going to be opening this morning somewhere around just below where we opened yesterday. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens today. There's a real shelf formed at 24,000. If that breaks, then it'll be a very interesting short. But if it holds, then the market would look to probably move higher. The overnight range, absolutely huge today, over 200 points. We certainly don't want to be trading until the market moves above this prior week high in yesterday's close. And we don't want to be trading unless the market moves below 24,000. So really, we've got probably about 140 point range of what we'll call a no trade zone. So an area where we just don't want to touch it. And that's about that. I want to go through yesterday's trading. It was a bit of a mixed bag. We made money. So it was a net positive session, but it was 2 very good trades and 1 trade where I've certainly learned from it. So trade number 1 yesterday, we opened here, the market sold off into the range, rallied higher, and then came down to test this prior week high. It tested and then tried to push again, failed, and then we bought around the close of this candle here and took profit at the top of the range. So this was a really nice breakout retest, real classic trade. And then the trade which we lost, we went for a mean reversion. Now there were multiple reasons why this didn't work, but long story short, I'm not going to be trading mean reversion for a while, because I'm doing really well on the whole breakout retest thing. I'm executing confidently, very high success rate, making good money, beating my targets. I just don't feel like there's any need to trade any other strategy. But this went wrong because essentially I bought around here after what I'd seen as the test of the lows, an attempt to push it back down, and then failed. So the idea was there, but then there wasn't enough sort of confluence in the rest of the price action because we were still below the low that we'd made earlier in the session. So essentially this was actually a breakout retest of this here because the market broke out below the low. We came back up to retest and then we sold back off. So if there was going to be any trade here, it should have been a breakout retest down. But because I was looking at trading a different system, I sort of had a different bias in my mind. So I'm just going to get rid of that from now on. or at least for the time being. So that took us to slightly net negative for the morning. But then I made a really good trade again. So we had a breakout below the overnight range, and then we came back up to test, and then I shorted on the close of this red candle here, and again we took profit near the bottom of the range. So that was a great trade. So we made two excellent textbook trades. But if we could just get rid of this loss here going forward, then we would really be looking at a great day. So rather than being £150 up, it would have been something like £320 up. So that's what we're looking for today. So here's the live price action. Not a particularly happy first few candles at all. Yeah, not very happy. Not very happy. So yeah, our no trade zone, I'm gonna draw it today, just as sort of a mental reminder to not trade in this area. So essentially from this prior week high down to this low here, I don't want to be touching any trades in this region. Now, maybe later in the session, as the market develops, that could possibly change, but I'd say it's unlikely. So we've got a very faint little box there within that slight orangey box. I do not want to be touching it. So this is where our account currently sits, 4 days in, £550 up. Looking good. I mean, this is essentially sort of just a continuation of my performance before I started streaming, for like the sort of 6-7 weeks before then, which is good. Streaming hasn't negatively affected my P&L, especially considering this has not been a great market to trade recently. I'm so far very pleased with how we've done. Thursdays historically haven't been one of my better days. Generally, sort of, I think through fatigue building throughout the week. I think typically Monday and Tuesday are really good. Wednesday and Thursday, not so good. And then Fridays tend to be really good because I tend to learn from whatever lessons I've learned through Wednesday and Thursday. The more aware I'm becoming of these sort of patterns, the better I am at dealing with them. I also think biases can build and develop throughout the week. I tend to come into the market completely fresh with no real expectation on a Monday. And then by Thursday, maybe I've made money. And then I get defensive. Maybe I've lost money. Then I want to make it back. Maybe the market's been moving higher for 3 straight days. So then I don't expect it to go down. Things like that. Small little biases that can affect you. That's what I want to avoid today. So that's why I've got a very clear no trade zone. Very clear sort of image of what I want to do today. Volatility is up today, so our average true range is up to 14, which is the highest it's been all week, which is as expected now that the Fed has made its decision. And now it's just a case of waiting, really, to see what happens. It's going to take a lot this morning to push the market to a price where I'd want to go long. It's going to take a lot. I really don't want to be long the market unless we move up here. It's 100 points before I even think about going long. Sometimes tricky when the overnight range is so big. But it does often happen on these post FOMC days because Asia gets the first opportunity to react. Where most of the other US sort of announcements and data releases happen around lunchtime UK, which is early morning America. So then America gets the first chance to react to the news. So yesterday's low was down here, basically bang on 24,000. If we keep pushing lower, we'd be looking for a break below this level, and then a retest, and then carry on down. If the market does push lower today, it's kind of unclear exactly where it would want to go. I was thinking yesterday about how I would scale my account in terms of adding risk over time as I make money. And I'm thinking of adding approximately £20 of risk for every £1,000 I make, give or take. I'm currently on £550 up, so once I'm £1,000 up, I'll increase my risk probably from 160 up to 180. Which would essentially be about one contract, because I tend to risk about 20 points. So I'm currently trading about 8 contracts, so I'd probably go up to 9. Because I always want to risk a similar percentage, because if my account's growing but I'm not risking more, I'm essentially making less relative to my account size. And I'd also much rather slowly size up my account going forward than doing big jumps like I've done so far. Because in the last few months, I've gone from risking £35 to £100 to £160. Big leaps. I think I'd like to make it a little bit more linear and smooth for this next year. So the market's come down and tested 24,000 and has so far rejected it decisively. It's funny, we said we weren't going to take a mean reversion today, but it's funny that could actually be the right way to go. But I'm not going to be looking for it. So if we do hold here, and it's very clear that the market's going to hold this over the next 10-15 minutes, you could see this here as a new consolidation area. If I just draw that quickly, this could be so let me just make that a bit clearer. So this could be a consolidation area from which we could then trade along. But anything like that wouldn't be until after 8:30. I really want to give the market time. When you look at a higher time frame, like the hourly chart here, it's very obvious that this 24,000 is a very, very important price level. Okay, so for the moment, the market's made a prior bar high here and has sold off. Let's reject. So this level that I've marked out here is the point of control yesterday. So where the most volume was transacted, which is frequently where there'll be reversals occur from, because there'll be a lot of orders placed there. So it'll be interesting to see if this 5-minute candle closes in the red. I think if it can rally back up again and push higher, I think that's quite a strong signal. But I think this is one of those days where the longer I go without trading, the clearer the picture is going to become. Okay. So if we had this sort of consolidation level above the overnight range and above yesterday's close, this would be where I'd be getting really interested. But we're nearly 100 points below where the market closed yesterday, and we're 60 points below where we opened just this morning. So it's sort of impossible to feel like buying. So what we've got here is an attempted breakout. For the moment, the market's pushed it back. It does feel like the market wants to move higher. It really does. I think the best plan today is to wait till 8:30. Wait for that second 15-minute candle and then go from there. I think we can then mark out some areas of interest. 10-minute chart gives a pretty clear picture of what's happening. I think what I'd like to see in the next 20 minutes is a retest of this level here. Come back down in here. And then if the market decides to go back up again, I'll trade along. A retest here would be nice. This will be interesting now to see what happens if we just carry on back down, or if we can hold this where we broke out. That's a pretty strong initial reaction for sure. You could also argue that the market broke out of this pre-market level and we've just retested where we broke out. This is the tricky thing with being in the overnight range, is if we were at the highs of the day right now, you wouldn't have all this stuff above to worry about. You know, you just have a very clear plan, be able to trade the long. Okay, I'm long. I'm long here. With the expectation that the market's going to push. So the idea here is we've had consolidation and then we've broken out, tested, pushed up, and then we've failed to push the market back down to the retest, which is essentially exactly what we did yesterday to good effect. Of course, nothing's ever guaranteed. But my entry reasoning is sound. Now we are within the overnight range, so it'll be interesting to see if that affects how this trade goes. If this was above the overnight range, I would be, this would be a 10 out of 10. Being within the overnight range, I'm not sure. I like how we are accumulating at the highs. For me, this is another positive sign. Again, doesn't mean we're going to win. Our profit target is where we opened this morning. So we are up here is our profit target. I'm moving my stop loss up. I don't like how this is not going anywhere. I'm willing to take a small loss here if needed. I'm being cautious and trying to protect the money I've made so far this week. So the market's either going to push here or we're going to get stopped out for a half loss. Stop loss to break even. This is probably going to be a break even trade. Slightly cautious, maybe overly cautious, but here we go. Either the market's going to break now and we're going to be good, or we'll be stopped up for nothing. It's trying. If it fails this move, though, I'm quite happy being out. Okay. Well, it's trying. Come on. Come on. Don't, you're teasing me now. I've taken half profit. Wow, this is a painful one, hey? See, this is what happens in the overnight range. Even when you get a real clear setup, it can still be choppy and a little bit painful, but you know, that's fine. Moving stop loss up. Taking another half. That's 3/4 of the trade we're out of now. £100 profit currently. Closed. Okay, and I am out. Not bad. Not bad, considering that was a trade that was looking like a loser early on. Not bad. So that was about 144. Yeah, 144. So not a huge trade, but again, given the market conditions, I think it's a trade that we can be happy with. Right, let me just sort my screens out. Okay. So that was an interesting one. That was a very interesting one. So really, that's just me reading the 1 minute chart with quite good accuracy. So, oh, hello. Okay, I did not turn my drawings off there. Okay, what are we doing? Bear with. Let's let TradingView just sort itself out. Now you can't see this, but the DAX is now selling back off. I'm going to try and close this and reopen. One moment. So the DAX has sold all the way back to my entry now. Here you go. So what did I see? First of all, we saw this test of 24,000, and that's, that was our first sort of notable thing of the morning. And then we see us push above this consolidation, which we marked out earlier. Then we saw a retest of the consolidation, which held. And then we saw this rejection, this 1 minute candle here, rejecting a move higher. But then the subsequent candle immediately being bought up. So we rejected here, we retested successfully, and then we refused to go back down and knock on the door again. And that to me was my sign to buy. I bought around here, I believe. And then we had some sideways movement, but we were moving sideways at the highs. If we were moving sideways at the lows, I'd be very concerned. But we were moving sideways at the highs. Once we made this second wick down here, I then felt pretty safe to move stop loss up, just for, risk management. I didn't need to do that. I just wanted to do that. And then why take profit here rather than letting it run all the way back up to the open? Because I did say that my target was up here. I don't really have a good answer for that. I don't really have a good answer for that. That is where it's purely discretionary and purely up to you. Because another day it would have moved all the way up here, and I may be kicking myself for missing out on 50% of the profit that I could have made. But I would have been stopped out break even now had I held. So in this case, it was a good decision. But I'm not striving for perfection. I'm just striving for following my rules and making some money. So now, rest of the session, we said at the start, areas of interest below the previous day low, above the previous day close. We're currently sat exactly in the middle. I'm gonna go and have a quick break, get a drink. We'll come back at 9 o'clock. We'll come back for 9 o'clock and see if the market wants to break these levels. If by 9:15 we haven't, then I will just be really, really chuffed with making some money in what has been so far another horribly difficult session, and get on with my day. So yeah, I'll be back in about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we will see what the market wants to do. Okay, we're back. We're back, and now things are getting interesting, hey? Now things are getting interesting. Wow. That is a real acceleration. Could have gone long here. I'm not saying I would have if I'd have been sat here, but could have. You know, because if you look at all these candles, this one sticks out like a sore thumb to me. You know, when you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 candles in a row doing absolutely nothing, and all of a sudden you've got this big green candle, especially when it's wicked lower. So we are now approaching finally our true area of interest. Now it is still within the overnight range, and it's still not that good, is it though? The more you zoom out, the less attractive this gets. Previous day open. What's gone on here? There we go. Jesus, this is so messy. Okay, well, the market's really exploded. I mean, what's happening right now is what I was hoping was going to happen here. You know, we were just one leg too soon. You know, I mean, I've still made money, so I'm, you know, in no way am I complaining or saying that I'm unlucky, because while most of the time I was in this trade, I thought I was going to lose. So I was actually going to come back and say I consider myself lucky today to have not lost. However, just to bear in mind for future, you know, if we had gone long here, which I very may well have done had I been sat here, you know, that'd be risking 17 points to make, well, at least up to this high here. 17 points to make 40. You know, so that is where you risk 160 and you make 350, 400 in 3 minutes. You know, and they're the sort of trades that will happen. They will come. It's just the market in this since Friday has just not been in the mood. I don't know if I can just go back. I'm just going to get some slides up from earlier in the year, you know, just to show you how difficult these current market conditions are. Try and find a couple of good early year examples. Okay, this is a good example. So these are the sort of days which we just aren't seeing at the moment. And these are called trend days, where, you know, the market's opening above the previous day close, at the highs or above the highs of the previous day. and the market just goes up. Simple as that. It just goes up. It just simply goes up. So where in the past I was, trading the 15-minute chart with a, 70-point stop loss or something, I'm now trading with a 20-point stop loss at the most. So my risk reward factor now is like so much better. So these trades earlier in the year where I was making 50, 60 points, but I was risking 50, 60 points. So I was only making back what I risked. But now, if I'm making 50, 60, 100 points and I'm risking 20, that's now going to be like £600. My very first trade that I ever made with real money, where was it? Here it was. This was the first ever trade I made with real money. I was long here. So the market, hang on. So the market moved. We were above the overnight range. We were at the start of a big bull run here. The market sold off a little bit at the open, tested the overnight range, and then just went crazy for the rest of the day. And I went long above this 15-minute bar on a school run long, and I made about 70 points. I made about 70 points easily and quickly. Like that sort of trade, we've not had that now for. I'm scraping sort of 15, 20 point wins currently. So when the market does turn back into these sort of conditions where it just rips, I've certainly got the tools now to make the most of it. And that becomes really obvious on a weekly chart. If I just get rid of all the noise, one moment. So I started trading here in January, and look at this, every week, just off we go, and then we had the tariffs and everything, which, would have been incredible to trade if I, knew what I was doing at the time. And then again, a massive rally. And then pretty much since June, it's been sideways. But really, especially August, because there was still a lot of volatility here. But really since the middle of August, besides a couple of, a few days here and there where Trump has said something stupid, it's not been a day trader's paradise. And that's the DAX. But if you look at the US equivalent and you look at the NASDAQ, in that time, you see a very different picture. So if I'd have been trading the NASDAQ, we've been making, until the end of October, we were making all-time highs on a near weekly basis. So it's just market conditions. Anyway, probably one thing I should add as well is, I'm making money. I'm still making money currently. But if I was trading my system that I'd had earlier in the year, for the majority of the year, I would not be making anything right now. Absolutely nothing. I mean, I'd be losing, right? But I just wouldn't have a clue. So I'm extremely fortunate in a way that I've come across the methods that I've come across in the last couple of months, because this short-term scalping method is, to my knowledge, the only way of me making a profit consistently in this market. So it's 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. We tested the pre-market high and rejected it. If we look at the hourly candle, I think that will give you the best sort of idea of what's actually gone on here. So we made a prior bar high off the open, sold all the way down to 24,000, have come all the way back up. I think we would naturally expect some sort of retracement. And then it's a case of, okay, is the market going to find some buyers in here somewhere and rally? Or are we just going to sit within this hourly candle range for the morning until the US market opens? My plan is to start trading the NASDAQ once I'm down to 3 or 4 days a week of tennis coaching. Because the NASDAQ is really just a slightly more volatile version of the DAX in terms of the way it trades. And this breakout retest strategy I learned from a trader that specializes in trading the NASDAQ. So this system has actually been optimized for the NASDAQ, not for the DAX. I've just adapted it. Actually, we can see how volatile the NASDAQ has been if we look at the average true range over the last few days. Bear with. Yeah, so yesterday, the NASDAQ in the evening was trading with an average true range of around 20. So that shows you the level of volatility, where the DAX we're trading with an average true range of around 10 to 15. So it's an extra sort of, well, at least 50%, and that's opportunity, that 50%. So in the market here, we're doing a similar thing now to what we were doing down here, where we're consolidating at the highs, which is a good sign that the market's going to move higher. Now, I've already made money today within this noisy noisy market, so I'm not going to try my luck again. But that level there, I'll mark it on the chart. Potentially an entry, long, potentially. My concern is that we're so close to the current highs of the day, but I think you could bet on the market breaking it. But oh. Well, that wouldn't have worked. This is why I'm not trying my luck again. Okay, you know what? I'm going to finish. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to stop there. There's so many levels up here that the market needs to break for me to get interested. It may well do it. I'm really happy to make a profit this morning. I don't really want to trade anymore, which is a real sign that I should stop, because generally I don't want to stop. So I'm going to finish it there. Another good morning. Just one trade today. A profit of about 145, I believe, about 145 pounds, in a market that's trading currently at the exact price that it opened, which I think basically says everything you need to know. So thank you again. I'll be live tomorrow to hopefully keep this positive streak going. That's now 5 for 5 days, 5 wins.